I love you, Dad. And I know I don't tell you enough, but I'm so proud of you and we'll follow you into battle anywhere. And then, oh wait, there was one more line. And if you and Mom need anything out of me, I'll be there. Right?
Access more.
Life is like a roller coaster, but it's so much better when we go through it together. Welcome to the Candace Bure podcast. We're having deep conversations about life over multiple episodes, and my guest host this season is author Jennie Allen. Come join us as we talk about emotions and parenting. All right, how many kids do you have?
4.
And I have 3.
Yes.
You grew up in a family of 3 girls.
3 girls.
I grew up in a family of 4. I'm the baby. Where do you fall in line?
I'm the oldest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite memory from a vacation with your family as a child?
Yeah. So we used to drive an hour to my grandparents' little bitty condo near a lake. And it was so fun. And there was only 2 bedrooms. And so all of us would be in the same room together. And then we had this Barbie closet and it was all Barbies. It was the best. And we 3 girls, Yeah. So a boy would have been in trouble in our lives because they would have had nothing to play with except Barbies. So yeah, we just would play Barbies for hours and hours and hours.
I had a friend that had the Barbie dream house and I would love going over to her house just so I could play in there. I was so jealous.
I think it's making a comeback too. Just a hunch.
I know. My childhood favorite vacation memories is we had a house in Big Bure, which is about 3 hours east outside of Los Angeles in the San Bernardino Mountains. And I just loved going there. That house was full of everyone. So felt like this communal house. I mean, it was ours, but we would invite aunts, uncles, cousins, friends. So it was always filled with so many people. And a couple of the bedrooms didn't even have beds in them because all the kids would just go on the floor with sleeping bags and we would just hang out and we would go skiing and there was a lot of cooking because we'd usually go up for Thanksgiving or Christmas time. And I just loved it.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I think there's such I am such a person who loves a full house. I know not everybody, I see my pun there, but I just genuinely like my kids being older. I want them to come over all the time. I want them to have their friends over. I like it being full. Yeah.
I love it. That's how I grew up. My husband doesn't feel the same way.
I was going to say, I know the introverts. Yes. My husband doesn't totally either. He keeps trying to kick out the kids, I'm like, no, they can stay a little longer.
My husband loves the kids. It's just more the friends. He doesn't want everyone else over all the time. What about as an adult family? Yeah. Do you guys have a favorite vacation spot?
Yeah. So it's so funny. We grew up, our kids grew up going, we had a friend that owned a little, it's a great place to stay, by the way. If you're ever in Texas, it's Green, Texas. And Green's famous because it has Schlitterbahn, which is a big water park. It has a river you can float that's cold. Ooh, so pretty. And we would stay at the Green Mansion Inn all their lives. And, we were in ministry and barely had enough money to ever think about taking a vacation. That sweet man, I think, charged us $30, like just barely anything, and would let us stay at the inn. And we would go, twice a year. And it's the best memories. And we would all pile in on each other and we would go adventuring and it got everybody away. I feel like that's my favorite thing to do is just get everybody away. Yeah. What about y'all?
Yeah. So I feel very, very fortunate that we have some pretty fantastic family vacations.
Yeah.
And my husband, being Russian, we have a lot of European friends.
Fun.
Yes. So we often go to Europe for our vacations.
Where's your favorite place to go?
Capri, Italy.
Well, sure.
Yeah. And I would say that's probably my kids' favorite too. We absolutely love it. But I will tell you, one of the most fun vacations for us, we were visiting with our friend in Switzerland.
Okay.
And we often use his house so we can see him as our hub. So we'll kind of fly in and out and then tool around Europe, wherever else we want to go, whatever other countries. But that's the home base. And so we were there in Switzerland, and then my friend happened to call, and he was kind of like, or text me and said, "Oh, we're in Greece right now." And I said, "I think we were thinking of going to Greece. We're here because we also kind of fly by the seat of our pants. We don't map out the entire vacation. We just kind of know, hey, we're going to be here for 10 days or 2 weeks. And then once we get there, we book the flights dinners in and out, but then we book everything while we're there." So, and anyway, he basically said, I rented a yacht.
No.
And he's like, he's my husband's very dream. Rich man. Okay.
You have to be.
This person. So he rented a yacht, and apparently a bunch of the seas were really bad. And I think he was going to a wedding.
That's scary.
And they couldn't make it to the wedding. So he's like, we're basically have to stay on this side of Greece and can only stay in these certain islands. So he said, but nobody made it to the boat that was supposed to get on the boat with us. So I'm here hanging out with a friend, and we have this entire yacht to ourselves.
Your kids are like, and yes, we're in.
My kids here. And at the time, like Max was 6. Like Lev was 8.
We're not convenient yachters.
I was like, we are not really. You want this crowd coming to the
adorable.
Yacht? And he goes, yeah, I mean, what else are we going to do? He goes, just come for a couple of days and we'll go to an island or two. And we went, okay.
That is the best.
And we hopped on the yacht, and it was one of the most fun times because, again, this isn't the type of friend that I'd normally bring like my kids with. And he was so game for it. And we would get off on a couple of the islands, and we rode donkeys.
Yachts and donkeys. That goes together well.
We had swim races with the kids off the yacht. It was like,
what a dream.
It was a total treat. I mean, I don't know that will ever happen again in life. It was a blast. And we still laugh about it to this day when we get together with him, and we just talk about all the things that happen in Greece and with my kids.
So fun.
Yeah, it was good. What do you think makes good memories?
Well, that's a great question. I don't think it's always the good stuff. I think some of my favorite memories with my kids was being in the hard with them. We're about to be in a stage where, our kids don't need us as much. My youngest is 15. He's going to drive before we know it. And they won't need us as much. And I love the times they did. I love that they invited us into a terrible day, and just all those things. I think so many of my sweet memories with them had to do with moments that weren't the best, that they probably wouldn't think of as a good memory, but I was just so glad to be in it with them. Does that make sense?
It does. Because I can think of a moment in Lev's life when he was playing hockey, and he worked so hard. And Val was coaching both of my boys through hockey, through their whole hockey lives up until college. But Lev was like the hardest working kid on the team. But he's a little guy. He didn't get the height to really play hockey. And at that age, we just didn't think that it mattered. And it did. And he didn't get chosen for the team. And his skill level was really good. Yeah. And it broke his heart.
Oh,
but
buddy.
It may have broken our hearts even more for
watching
him.
It. Right.
Because he worked so hard.
It wasn't fair. Yeah.
And I mean, I'll never forget the feeling of sitting with him in that, and with my husband too. It was heartbreaking for all of us. But, when you, especially for a child, when you see them work hard, put all their effort, and actually deserve the goal or deserve the A, and for some weird reason, they don't get picked. They don't get chosen. They lose out on the opportunity. It's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. And I've been there too and watched it. And I would say, as someone, and I know you feel this way too, as someone who now sees their kids grown, I'm like, and that those are also the moments that made them. Like it made them into who they are. But as it's happening, it's like, no, I do not want this pain for my kid. And is there any way we can avoid it? Yeah, there's nothing worse than watching your kid hurt. I just hate it. I'd rather me any day of the week than them.
Yeah.
It's just the worst.
Speaking of Lev, I think he'll be okay if I share this, but he's 5'6", which is, he unfortunately got the Cameron side of the genes, okay, in the height department. And so for a man, like 5'6" isn't, it's not tall. Yeah. It's not the shortest, but it's, Yeah. And
well, disappointing as a wanting to be a professional hockey player. Yes.
Yeah. I think Theo Fleury might have been 5'6". He was probably 5'7". But anyway, hard as a hockey player. So, but of course, that became my sensitivity for him.
Yeah.
And I became over aware of it. So I was always trying to look out for him and like, oh, we're taking a family picture. Lev, why don't you stand here because this side of the street, it's going up a little bit, or why don't you step on this step and just other kind of not making jokes, but just trying to not make him feel uncomfortable when I didn't realize the reality was I was more, it wasn't that I was uncomfortable, but like, I was worried about him and I wanted to. And one day he finally said to me, as a teenager in his late teen years or early 20s, and he just goes, Mom, why do you care so much about my height? And I'm like, cause I just like, I don't want it to be a source of pain for you because his brother, by the way, his brother's 6'1".
No.
Yeah. So Max is 6'1", Lev is 5'6". And I'm like, I'm sorry. I feel like it's my fault. You got my genes, and he just goes, Mom, I don't feel bad about myself because I'm 5'6". He's like, this is how God made me.
He shouldn't, because he's the cutest thing I ever did see.
He goes, God made me this way. Right. I can't change it. Why should I feel bad about it? I'm confident I am exactly who God made me to be.
Go, Lev.
Okay, Lev, that's why you are who you are.
Right.
He's incredible in that way.
And it's made him into that person. Like the adversity thing, we want to keep our kids from it. And yet this is how it goes. And, I was thinking about this episode specifically. I've actually been thinking about it the whole way through because I've known it's coming. And, we just walked through a really hard season as a family with my husband's health and then with some business things with him. And my sweet husband, when he went through the depression, he was real honest about it. I think I mentioned that early in the season. He sat everybody down and said, listen, this is where I am emotionally. This is where we are right now financially and could be if this doesn't go well. By the way, the business recovered, everything's okay. But I should add that. And I have that at the end of the book. But it was, 6 months there where it was like, gosh, this is going to be hard. And my kids were so amazing. And I remember, part of me would think to myself, I need to protect them. They don't need to know about this. They don't need to know Zach's in a bad place. They don't need to know finances might get tricky. Like they don't need to know all that. And Zach didn't even hesitate. He was like, we need to tell the kids. And so after he did that, my son wrote him a text. And I just think this is such a great picture of why we're going to do hard things with our kids and why we're going to have these conversations and why we're going to come to our kids even when we're sad and say it. But he wrote Zach that night, or was it this morning or the morning after, Dad, sitting here just crying and thinking about what you're going through. I know you're asleep and I'll tell you in person, but I want you to know I'm so proud of the father and businessman that you have been for me and taught me to be. I see your work ethic, vision, and execution every day, and it breaks my heart to see a dream not come to fruition. But all I can think about amidst grieving with you is how proud I am that you're my dad. I don't think I'd be crying if I didn't love you and think of you as a best friend. That alone is something I will continually pray with my future son. I love you, Dad. And I know I don't tell you enough, but I'm so proud of you and will follow you into battle anywhere. And then, oh wait, there was one more line. And if you and mom need anything out of me, I'll be there. Right? But I'm like, when that text came through, and I had doubted whether we should bring them into our emotions and what we were going through, because it just felt like a burden, and they don't have to carry it with us. You know, he's grown, and but we're really all close.
Yep.
And then I look at that, and I'm like, that's connection, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about the point of emotions.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's connection. For us to know each other better, for us to walk through things together, for Lev to even say that to you and just say, Mom, like, don't worry about that. Like, just to bring it up, like that's the stuff. I don't know that everybody feels like they can do that with their family, but we want that. Yeah. And the way we get it, you want a close family, and the way you get it is you go through things together and you talk about it and you use your words and you say what you're feeling and you bring it up and you work it out, rather than holding on to things till you're grown and talking to a counselor about it, which is fine. We obviously are for that. But how much better to just bring it up and just talk about it?
I wonder how many people listening have ever talked to their kids about what they actually do for a living, like in the day to day, whether you are full-time at home or go to work outside of the home. I realized at one point in my life, and my kids weren't very young. I mean, they were at least
old enough
like teens, teens.
Right.
And
we
at
accidentally miss these things.
I was doing something, and one of my boys was just like, wait, what do you do?
This is so cute.
And it was like, well, I know you're on TV, but wait, what do you do? What do you do now? And I'm like, I'm producing this movie. I'm doing this and that. Oh, what does that mean? What do you mean you produce movies? And I realized, I'm like, you know, you're right. I go about my day, and I don't know that I've actually let you into my world as to what I do. And that goes for everything. The other conversations that you're having.
Right. The difficult things, the good things,
all of that. But if you have ever wanted to take your child to lunch or to dinner, and we talk about having special time or a special date with your child.
Big fan.
But start there.
Right.
Like, what do you think your mom does in a day?
Because kids aren't old enough to ask us, they're not mature enough to say, Mom, how was your day today? I mean, we kind of practice that in our house. It's really cute. And we kind of tell them, like, now you need to ask us. Like, well, we're teaching them to have a more mature conversation. And now they're old enough that they absolutely do. It's so cute. My daughter always will quickly turn it back and say, Mom, well, what did you struggle with today? What'd you have a hard time with?
Yeah.
And so it's sweet. And you don't expect it when they grow up like that, and you're so grateful. But I do think, you kind of have to say, like, let me tell you about what's going on with me.
Yeah.
And I think they appreciate it, because I think they want to be, it's like Connor, like he felt let in to be a grown up. He felt like, I can support y'all. Y'all been so supportive of me. I can support you right now while Dad's down and not in a good place, you know? So it's just, I think there's a moment that I'm not saying it's always right to bare your soul to your kids. I'm not saying at 3 or 4 or even 10,
right?
Because you don't want to be a burden. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about enough vulnerability that they know you're human, that they see how you're emotionally processing something. They see how you're going through things. Apprenticeship is an old, antiquated idea, although many professions still have it. Electricians, plumbers, that kind of thing. But it used to be the way of life. You would apprentice to learn to do anything. And many times it was with your parent. And so that's ultimately what we're doing. We're apprenticing them into grown-up life. We're showing them how to fight, how to have friendship, how to work, how to be creative, how to take a rest and a break, how to have fun. You know, we're showing them. Ultimately, parenting is way less about what we teach them and tell them to do, and way more about how we live and how they learn to live.
Right. It's like on the job training.
Yeah. And so if you hide all the good parts, then you're not training them. They miss those whole lessons.
Right. Yeah. And so conversations, if you have younger children, are as easy as sharing feelings that are appropriate to say, like, Mommy feels sad today.
Yeah.
And that's understandable to a child.
Right. It is.
But maybe if you have teens, you can say, I'm having a hard day today because, and you can go into a little more detail.
Let me tell you a little secret.
Okay.
They're actually more at peace. Most kids, and I'm not saying every kid, but most kids are more at peace if you say, I feel sad today. and give them some context as to why. The detail may not be relevant or important. Somebody hurt my feelings today, whatever it is. Then they hear you crying in the other room. They sense you're sad. Like that's more confusing to a child. If you actually just use your words and say it, you think you're stressing them out or burdening them. But the reality is they are way more in distress hearing you be sad and not hearing you on the phone, talking to somebody else be sad. Yeah. It's actually less stressful for them to just have you look at them and tell them that.
And the younger you allow that in the life with your kids, I've seen the fruit of that as my kids have grown up, but even in teen years, and as horrible as teen years can be for some children and parents, even in the worst of it, I've had moments where I was sad and it's like, Max and Lev come up and they just hug me, or Natasha, and they just come up and hug me because they know. And there's, again, a freedom in that. And that can just change the whole dynamic and change the room, but they've been allowed and given permission, and they've been let in on things over time that they know, hey.
Well, it makes them feel close to you. It's part of team building, right? Just think of a sport. If you're playing, soccer together and somebody's limping and the whole team doesn't ask why, like, what's going on? Are you okay? And they take care of you. That's being a good team. Yeah. and we're part of a team too, the parents. I mean, you're humans and you're part of this team. And so, I think it just helps. Again, I love the phrase, use your words. Yeah. Everybody just say what you're feeling, talk about it. Yeah.
Yes. And you have to be the example of that. I'll also say, because I've seen it
done badly.
No, well, I've seen it in that I've had people ask me questions like, how do you get your kids? How do you have a strong relationship with your kids? How do you have that? And, my kids, they don't even want to hug me. They don't want to talk to me. And my first question back is, well, do you talk to them?
So good.
Do you hug them?
Right.
Because you have to model it. Yeah. And if you really think about it, some people might think like, well, of course I hug them, or, well, I only hug them if they let me hug them. But the reality is, if you're already at that stage, maybe they don't want you hugging because you never modeled it younger and they never felt like they could receive it. And now it's just weird. So it's always my first question back is like, well, if you're so mad at your child that they're not giving you, like, let's just look at how much you've given them or modeled it or shown them.
Well, you have to remember, there's a little season there that no offense, if some of you are in the season, some of you are 15, 17. There's a little season there that everybody just, their frontal lobe's not there. And like,
some seasons they just get mean.
They just get mean. And it's like, you got to also, I mean, you don't know it with your first, but you sure do with your fourth or third, that they'll come out of it. It's like, there's a season there that you just can't get your feelings hurt and you just show up anyway and you fight for them and you be nice when they treat you like a jerk. And later they recognize, they're like, I was a jerk. I'm like, yeah, you were. But I do think that in large part, they need to be fought for, nobody's fighting for them. They go through their day and they survive. And they're probably not so upset with you as they had a really terrible day. School's hard, y'all. I'm telling you, I'm helping my kid with homework lately. And I'm like, I can't do this stuff. And the pressure to hit the grades and the pressure to make the team and the pressure to stay, in your position and the starter and the pressure to sit at the right table and the pressure to have a girl like you or notice you, the pressure, it is all of it. It is a lot. So all of you in that phase, listen, you are going to be great in life because it's hard to just make it through high school.
It really is. You couldn't pay me to go back.
Never.
Let alone in today's day and age.
Yeah. Sweet. My 15-year-old's like, Mom, it feels like the weight of the world is on my shoulders. And I look at him, I'm like, it kind of is. I mean, is GPA matter? Like, it is. And I always tell them, I'm like, of course, like you can mess up, you can. Yeah. But they feel it, So I think sometimes that's a hard stage because you don't totally know what you're dealing with. You don't know if you're dealing with somebody that's been mean to them at school. You don't know if you're dealing with hormones. You don't know if you're dealing with a growth spurt. You don't know what you're dealing with. They didn't sleep last night. Yeah. So you just kind of have to have really thick skin those years.
You really do. And I learned Val was really good at helping me do this because especially when there was friction with my kids, and a lot of it probably was hormonal or just the frontal lobe is not developed yet. Yeah. he would keep encouraging me because my reaction is like, ooh, if they're not going to be nice to me, I'm not going to be mean to them, but like, I'm going to stay away. I don't want anything to do with it because I don't want the negativity around. Right. And Val would always go hug him. Go
so
hug
sweet.
him. And I'm like, okay, and sometimes you need that push. And I know there's parents that maybe on the opposite end that maybe they hug too much and it really does annoy their kids.
Totally.
But I needed to hear that encouragement in the teen years because
we don't necessarily want to hug him. I mean, I know my boys just perpetually stink for years in there. It's like, no matter what. I was thinking about like the end of parenting and the beginning of parenting. And somebody said, start with the end in mind when my kids were young. And Zach and I kind of built some goals that I think are helpful for people. And you have to remember, these are the goals for the end. This isn't something we're doing along the way necessarily, but we've got in mind, this is how we want to end. And it was that they would like God and that they would know God likes them. And that they would like us and that they would know we like them. Now, there were lots of days on the way there that they did not like us and that we did not like them. But we knew by the time we sent them out that we wanted those relationships intact. And so what it meant along the way was we would discipline. We were strict parents, especially, with your first two. You gradually get beat down and stuff. But, we were really strict with our first two. And there was a sense of, there were a lot of days we didn't know if that's how it would end up. But it caused you, even if you were going to punish, even if you were going to discipline, which lots of times we had to, you follow back up. You're like, I'm going to reach back out. We're not going to leave things here. We're going to work this out. And we fought to stay there, even when we had to go through times where they didn't like us. We still would come back around and say, so even like right now, if one of my kids gets grounded, younger kids, then, there's a sense of, okay, punishment is underway, but we're all going to be together. Let's have fun. Like, you can't go anywhere. You don't have your phone. What do you want to do together? We keep the relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Even though we're strict, we're still fighting for their soul and heart to feel close to us.
That's really good because I would normally think like, oh, you're grounded. So I'm going to have like, you're kind of not a part of the family right now while you're grounded.
Yeah.
But it was like, no, your privilege are taken away from the other things.
Which sometimes just brings their little soul back anyway. Yeah. Like they get a break from their phone, they get a break from friends. And I think they remember they like their family and it's cute. Right when I was leaving, one of my kids was grounded and they walked outside and said, I want to ask you like how long you think this is going to last? Because usually we're pretty clear, but with this one, it was like the phone is what kind of got him in trouble. So I'm like, I don't know if we're going to get this back right away or soon. Yeah. Dad and I are going to talk about it. And it was cute. He was like, but I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine, Mom. And I was like, okay, that's great. So I'm glad you're doing fine without your phone. So there's some good to just,
Did you see in your kids that who they were as little, either babies or children, are the same type of characteristics that they are today?
I swear, and I'll be so curious if all of y'all are the same way. I know you are. They come out how they come out.
Yes.
It is
same.
Wild. Like as babies, my third, who's a perfectionist today, and she has dyslexia, poor thing, because that just makes perfectionism extra hard. She just lives in a lot of tension. But she keeps her room clean. Everything is organized. And when she was 1 year old and we did that little smash cake, which the other ones threw at us, threw everywhere, she like barely took a bite at one. And then she wanted to clean off her high chair. I was like, how is that? How do they come out that way? Yours are that way, yes?
Mine are like that. Man, Natasha gave me the most trouble in the womb.
Did she?
She was like kicking and punching in the womb all the time in the womb. And man, that's how she's been her whole life. Her whole life. But she's a strong fighter, young woman, and I love it. I love her for it too. And then my boys were like just super mellow and chill. But I have the cutest little video. I will put a little link. My husband, way back in the day when he was playing for the Florida Panthers, did this interview for Russian TV. And so he's speaking in Russian. I don't really know what he's saying, but he's sitting there with Natasha. It looks like Natasha's about maybe 6. And she just has these pouty little lips, and she just kind of doesn't care about anything, which is like, so, I mean, she cares about a lot, but I'm saying it's just was so reflective of her personality. And even today, like, she makes fun videos about it. And then in the middle of the interview, Lev comes up, and Lev is just crying. And Lev is my most sensitive child.
Totally. Yes.
And Lev's just comforting him and putting his head on his shoulder. And then after that, Max comes up, and Max is just as happy as can be, and like waving to the crew, and everything's just great and fun and happy in life. And like, that's who Max is today.
Wow.
It is the cutest little video for me to watch.
Yeah.
But I'm like, they're 5, 4, and 2 in those videos, and they're the same people that they are today.
Unbelievable. So to all of you out there with young kids that you're like, I broke them. They're just so mean. They come out kind of the way they are. It really is true.
Yeah.
And then it's our job, right? That's fun too, because God picks, this kid for these parents, and they come out, and then you get to figure out, they're changing us and we're changing them, and we're walking through and figuring it out together. Mm-hmm. It's really fun.
It's really cool. Should we go to a listener question?
Let's do it.
Okay. This is from Taylor, and she asks, how did you navigate parenting, and what would you do now to ensure their success and closeness with God? There's a lot of information regarding discipline these days, and I would love a Christian perspective. I have a 4-year-old and a 4-month-old, and I'm overwhelmed trying to think about how to raise them to be connected to the Lord, accepting and loving towards all, and just how to navigate parenting in our current culture.
Wow. Every parent is going, me too.
I know.
It's hard. It's scary. There's no doubt. We're raising kids in a whole different world.
Yeah.
And there's a lot. It would be easy to be afraid and to live afraid. Mm-hmm. But remember that we have been given God, we've been given his word, and we get to raise little fighters. We get to raise kids, not fighters in a bad way, but just to fight for people and to fight for God and to love God. And I think, when they're young, you do have a lot of discipline. You have a lot of rails. You got to train them. I mean, they got to know. They got to know you can't touch this. You got to do this. Like, there's a lot of training that happens, and it's really hard to make it in life if you can't learn just basic right from wrong and how to not hit your sister. There's a lot you got to train. But then there comes a time where their little hearts become a little bit autonomous. They're independent, and that time is different for everybody. And my son, I remember when it happened for him, I just knew. He was a preteen. He was 12. And I'd ridden him, and we'd fought. And I realized I can't ride you anymore. Like, you're your own person, and your consequences are going to need to be yours. And he made a lot of bad decisions. And it wasn't that we weren't still there in parenting, but we stepped back just a few steps. We let him feel his freedom a little. And I think that's all a parenting is just letting out the rope a little further until it's cut and they're on their own. And it's really scary. You don't think about that when they're 4 months and 4 years. So in the beginning, it's just love them, have fun with them, help them to love life and talk about God. One thing I did when my kids were young, and I'm so glad I did it, was I was in seminary when they were young. And so I was learning all this great stuff about God. And I felt like I need to figure it out and teach them and figure out how to show them God. But I couldn't figure out how to teach. They were so bored. They were toddlers. They didn't want to listen, Yeah. So I decided I'm just going to talk about God whenever something beautiful happens, or whenever something hard happens. Like, we're just going to weave it in our everyday life. And it was just so fun. We had the best conversations. Kids are so deep. They get things. At 4 years old, they get things.
Yeah, they do.
They get suffering. They get sadness. They get anger. They get messing up. They get shame. They get all that. So there's a lot of fodder there. And don't be afraid just to, instead of feeling like you have to do devos every day or, force it. It's like, just talk about him.
That's exactly what we did too. And I didn't even really know how to do that with young kids, because we weren't Christians when I was little. And so I just kind of talked about God a lot. And we would talk about God, whether it was after reading a book or seeing something beautiful outside or watching a movie, I would always try to weave some kind of little life lesson or teaching moment, but something back to God with conversations. And the other biggest thing, especially when you have young kids, but truly throughout all of your parenting life, I really think the most important thing you can do for your children, I don't think you're ever going to ensure their connection to God because that is between them and God ultimately. But my best advice would be to model the behavior at home.
Yeah.
So walk the walk. Don't just talk the talk. So if you're telling them one thing about God and you're doing another, that's the first thing. You are the first example in your children's life.
That's right.
So remember that, and their little eyes are always watching, not to put the pressure of perfectionism. It's just remember and share the feelings. And when you mess up, be the first one to apologize and explain it and just model the behavior that you would like to see them grow into. Yeah.
And don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Kids are resilient. I can't believe it. My kids, I'm not saying every kid that you raise right turns out, because it just doesn't. Like, it's not that way. It's no sure bet. There's nothing. You can do everything, by every book, and a kid is still going to go through a hard time, and that might be their story. And you let them. But I'm at a place, and I know you are too, where I really enjoy my adult kids. And
I do too.
It's just a really fun, rewarding season. And
it is.
A lot of their lives went to public school. I mean, it's like we majorly sheltered them. But they love God so far. All of these kids.
Mine too.
And they are honoring him. And it's really, really rewarding and fun to watch.
It is.
Yeah. I was just thinking too, I have a tool.
Share it.
It's called The Story of God, and you can get it on Amazon, and it's 5 books that walk through God. And in the back of each book, it's just the story of who God is. And kids have gotten saved through. It's the sweetest thing. The stories from that little project. But in the back of every book are conversation starters. So if you feel like you're not good at this, like just talking about God or bringing up the things that, and tying it to your regular life, there's a lot of prompts back there that can kind of help.
Okay, great. Maybe we can link that in our show notes.
Great.
The little book. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for this. I can't wait to meet up next week.
I know. Can't wait.
Well, Jennie and I created a free PDF download for you this season. It's called The Unwind Guide, and it's a tool to help you thrive in your emotional health. It's available at Candace.com, where you can also ask questions that we will answer in upcoming episodes. Until next time, be grateful all day, every day. I'm so grateful you're here. If you're feeling grateful today, click the like button and comment on what you're grateful for. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Candy Rock Entertainment, all rights reserved.